YouTube! I am Pinstar, and this is Pinstar Predicts Splatterface 3. So, today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, just a touch. So, normally I'm not one to dive on to the whole React content theme that a lot of YouTubers are going on to, but this series is a bit of an exception. I've been following it since its inception. So, just to give you a little background, what is Splatterface? Well, Splatterface is done by a YouTuber named Kruggsmash, who has graciously given me permission to cover this series of his. Nope, wrong side. Go check it out. Go check it out. Link. Go sub to the guy. Really awesome YouTuber. What does he do? Well, he plays a game called Dwarf Fortress. What's Dwarf Fortress? It is a top-down colony building simulation game that has some of the deepest, most complex, most intricate mechanics ever seen in a game. And yet, some of the most simplistic graphics. Seriously, it's just like literally ASCII art. So it's a bit of a niche because while there's a ton going on in there, it's very hard to actually see what's going on there. So what Kruggsmash does is he kind of bridges the gap by doing little crayon drawings of what's going on in his stories, in his Let's Plays. One of his types of series is called Splatterface, which is a gladiatorial combat tournament where he drafts and lays out a dozen fighters, different races, armed with different tools and weapons and armor and shields and what have you, and has them go at it in a tournament style. Now, he narrates and illustrates this whole thing, and he's actually a really good storyteller. Like, the guy could write for, like, Survivor, like the actual reality TV show. The guy's really good at it. So he's starting up his third season, so I figured, you know what? Let's dive in. Let's react. Let's take a look at the fighters for season 3, and I will let you know my thoughts of who I think are going to be the winners and who might not make it out of the first round. Also, there are 2 other full seasons, so if you want to see the kind of thing that we're going to get into today, go watch those. But then, come back and watch the video here. So let's start it up, shall we? It's like a change of venue.
And now lies under the shamefully comfortable blanket of peace.
This is what I'm talking about, ASCII art. This is the old arena, but it represented in the game's graphical style of ASCII art. So you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. This was the original arena. I'm not sure who or what the S's are, but those are creatures, but they seem to be not dwarves, and they're swarming over it. So these were probably the new denizens. These red squigglies are lava and whatnot, but I digress. It looks like we have a new change of venue. A little bit.
Do you long for the rage of
I
battle?
do.
The frenzy of
I do.
struggle of glorious
Yep.
death. Then allow me to welcome you back to Splatterface.
That's what we're talking about. Episode 3, Splatterface.
The cradle of heroes, the tomb of legends. Bottom of the barrel.
All right,
to
good,
assemble a
good.
ferocious flock of 12 feisty fighters.
Same layout as the previous seasons. 12 initial, 2-2 to a 3-for-all, and then now against the champion.
Be paired up at random in round 1. Those who survive will move on to round 2, and then the 3 remaining fighters will be forced to fight in a titanic three-way battle that will give us this year's prime challenger. And what will that challenge be?
Oh, the Battle Beetle, of course.
Of course, that challenge is a one-on-one duel against the reigning champion of Splatterface of 2 years, the Battle Beetle.
Spoiler alert, but yeah, he's been the reigning champion for 2 years, and he might be tiny, but boy howdy is he a tough nut to crack. I don't know if they're going to be able to take him down, but we'll see what the fighters look like this year.
Armed with a deadly short sword and encased in a suit of bronze, the Beetle is a seasoned veteran, well versed in the ways of the arena, and will certainly pose a devastating threat to whoever is lucky enough to face him in this year's Apex. It's bound to be a good one, and so I beg you, once again, to gird those loins. And now, the rules of battle.
All right, see if this is
After
any
a match
different than
begins,
last
all
year.
hits are totally on the table, and the cheaper the better, I say. The opponents engage in their deadly dance until one finally falls. But this does not yet seal the deal, because first, the last one standing must survive.
Yep, the timer is back.
5 anvil
The
strikes.
timer is if you beat your opponent, but you're bleeding, you have to survive for 5 anvil swings. And if you bleed to death before that timer ends, you lose too.
After this, the living fighter is named the bout's winner, and as such receives the absolute best medical care we can
Shrieking
provide,
sounds!
which includes the reattachment of limbs and anything else required to get the fighter back into shape.
Now, that's an important part. So, yeah, the fights are brutal. Limbs get hacked off. People get maimed, get crushed, bones are broken. And, even after a single fight, a normal fighter would be probably suffering career-ending injuries. The way it works in here is through medicine and magic. They will basically restore them to full. Lost limbs, lost everything is put back to normal, and they are back in fighting shape. Also, last year, the winner usually gets a prize from the loser, or just a prize in general to better their equipment.
Now, a note. In previous years, the winner of a bout would also be able to choose
See,
a piece
that's
of
what I'm talking
gear
about.
from their fallen opponent that they could then take with them into future fights. But this year, we are doing away with that
What?
little touch, mostly
What?
because our fighters are so well armed.
Whoa. So the fighters don't get a prize piece? Ooh. So they have to win the whole tournament with what they've got at the beginning. They better be better armed this year, because a lot of them depend on that freebie piece of equipment as they move up the ranks.
Don't want to overdo it. I think they're good enough. And besides, fret not, you frenzied fanatics, because this year we've also made some other changes that are bound to be far more interesting.
All right, lay it on me.
See, in round 1, each bout will be taking place in a distinctly deadly arena, custom crafted with creative carnage in mind.
They did that in season 2, or at least they experimented with it. It looks like they're going at it from the get-go. The arenas do sometimes have some significant impacts on the fights.
Out in round 1, a different randomly selected arena will be chosen, with none being used more than once. That should keep things interesting.
Fair enough.
Eh? Well, I suppose you wouldn't know quite yet. So let's have a look at the arenas, eh? First up, we have the Beast Arena. A rounded ring of stone with a special guest thrown in for good measure. What beast will it be, you ask? Well, anything from Crundle to Cave Dragon is on the table, so this could well be anyone's fight right here.
So a random beast as a sort of a spoiler. I'm going to take a guess, just because it was sort of a running joke in season 1, that it's going to be a walrus. But we'll see what they throw in there. It'd be interesting if both of the combatants fall, if the beast moves on in the tournament. That'd be an interesting twist.
Next up, we have the Magma Grotto. At the match's start, a steaming stream of red-hot magma will begin flowing from the ring's roof and into the pit in the center. Fighters had better watch their step, or else the fight could be over very quick.
That one is somewhat similar to one of the original arenas, but the magma was sort of like a moat around the outside. This sounds like it's pouring onto the floor and spreading, which means if they get knocked prone, it could overtake them. Interesting.
After that, we have my personal favorite, the Archer's Trial. A square ring with a fortified archer right smack dab in the middle. Now, I'm going to note that the archer will be armed with wooden arrows, but that should still be more than enough to make things terribly tumultuous for our...
That's interesting, but... I wonder if the archer stops firing after one of the combatant goes down. Because they could just do a double kill just from the archer pinging away at them.
Fighters. Next up, there's the ultimately deadly Waterfall Bridge.
Okay.
This particular arena is bound to end a fight very quickly, as a single missed step could easily lead to a watery end.
Most of the creatures, at least in past seasons, can't swim. So you go in the drink, you're dead. Not to mention, there's the problematic thing here is a lot of creatures have a dodge skill that will, if to avoid an attack, they will sidestep. Well, the problem is when they sidestep, they don't necessarily factor in the terrain they're on and might sidestep themselves to death. So, yeah, I think they're accurate when they say this match will probably end quickly. Yay.
Let's face it, folks. This here is a death trap. I feel bad for whoever gets sent into this one. After that, we have a familiar face. The standard Splatterface ring.
No muss, no fuss. Good to have a stock standard one out there.
With no frips, frills, or a single death trap to speak of, this here is a battlefield that will put our fighters' true skills to the test. And last but not least, we have this ring over here that we haven't really
more of an oval.
What we're doing with, I don't know, expect some sort of water or beasts or like, I'm not too sure. I call this one the wild card arena.
They'll probably tailor to whoever gets picked for that.
6 bouts, 6 winners that will pass on to round 2, where we might have some more deadly surprises in store. Or not. Still really haven't figured that out yet. So it should be interesting.
This triangular one is probably where the 3-for-all is going to take place, because that's traditionally been the arena where the 1 versus 1 versus 1 in round 3 takes place. Okay, let's see who's up here.
To it. Like many of this year's fighters, our first face hails from the tunnels right underneath Splatterface. Chiefess of the Rotten Bones stuck up in a tree tribe. That's a translation.
Indeed.
We have the cold-blooded killer,
Carnivore.
Eater of flesh. Carnivore, the reptile woman, is a fearsome foe, protected by a shield and a suit of bronze on top of her already armor-clad.
All right, so animal beastly races tend to do pretty well, and I mean they come in all shapes and sizes and all kinds of animals. So she's probably not going to be the only beastly race here. Shields tend to do really well in Splatterface. Having a shield gives you a leg up over not having a shield, more so than any other piece of equipment. Spear, especially, I think he said steel-tipped spear. The material of the weapon actually matters. That's how detailed the combat simulations are. The fact that it's steel-tipped as opposed to like iron-tipped or stone-tipped is extremely important for how deadly it may be. Bronze armor, not too bad. The Battle Beetle uses bronze armor, and he's still around. He's been champion for 2 years. So I'd say Carnivore here, I think she has a pretty good chance.
And scales. But don't you forget about that spear of hers for a moment. She's traded in her old wooden spear for one of Dwarven steel.
Okay.
And since she signed up for Splatterface, she had been training like a fiend.
That's the other thing, is that under the hood, all of the fighters have different skills. Skills in dodging, skills with the shield, skills in weapons, skills in everything. Now, we never get to see the actual numbers, the actual skill rankings of the fighters, but they usually will describe how familiar they are with fighting, just verbally, so we can kind of take a guess. So she's been training feverishly, means she's probably above average in her different combat skills here.
Carnivora is a fighter to watch. Place your bets now. Coming in next, we have one of our heftier combatants this year, an axe-wielding legend from far human land. The Eye of Blood Castle. A human of significant proportions, the Eye is a much feared mercenary known to guard Fort Blood Castle.
First human they've had in the series.
In the human lands far beyond the eastern wastes. Only lightly armored, he'll have to hope his mythic skills are enough to pull him through the tournament. Though we can't forget about that great axe of his.
What's it made of?
Remember, in Splatterface, size can matter quite a
Well,
lot.
see, that's the problem. If the past fights in the past seasons are anything to go on, large characters that are not very well armored tend not to do well. Even if they are towering over their opponents, they tend to get cut to ribbons. The lack of armor and the large size makes them easy to hit, easy to wound, and just get torn apart. So, even with this axe, even if it's a steel axe, I'm not too confident in this guy's chances. I'm gonna say he dies in the first round.
Our next competitor hails from the misty purple jungles, where he acts as a seasoned palace guard to ancient forest kings. Let's give it up for Gorlach, or more simply, Blue Bottom, the Mandrill Man.
A mandrill, okay.
Sporting an array of bronze armor and a devilish grin, Blue Bottom is a seasoned veteran wielding a weapon we have not yet seen here at Splatterface.
What is that?
A sinister-looking pike,
Ooh.
which he seeks to skewer this year.
Pike, eh? That weapon does have reach. That could give him score him a few early hits. Although that also might be cumbersome if someone gets real up close and scrapping with him. That might not be as useful as, say, a short sword or a dagger, or even a long sword. So that might be against him here.
Here's foes. You know, I've heard that some dwarves like mandrill men for their colorful faces, but I like this one here for his sheer level of confidence. Let's just hope he has the skill to back it up.
You know what? The pike looks good, but I mean, he is skilled and he is pretty decently armored, but he doesn't have a shield. He doesn't have a shield. I'm going to say it's probably going to be close, but I think he's going to fall in the first round. He might pull out, depending on who his opponent is, but my confidence in him not as high as his own confidence here.
Up next, we have a thing that we found in the deeper caves below Splatterface. Armed with a dagger in each of her 4 arms, it's foreplay, the Manora. Like, she seems to be vaguely aware of what's going on.
What the hell is that?
She really seems to have some sort of senses.
What the hell is that? Okay, a Manora? I mean, there are a whole bunch of weird creatures in the Dwarf Fortress universe. It's not just, animal people and humans and dwarves. There are some legitimately weird things, and apparently they found one of the legitimately weird things. 4 arms with daggers, and a helmet, and no other body to speak of. And probably no other defenses to speak of. This thing, I mean, yeah, if it gets up close to something, depending on who it's paired with, it might do well, but maybe. Multi-attackers can do well, but this is like all offense, no defense, and like no mobility, really, because, yeah, I don't really see how this operates. I gotta see it in action.
She's completely unable to speak, so it's not like we can ask her. She likes to watch things. Trying to figure things out, I guess. It's just terrifying when you get down to it. We find her eating a carcass down there. Like, I guess I don't know what to say. Besides, she's creepy and certainly deadly looking. Watch out for this one. Moving on now to a savage beast.
Is that?
Who, like many others, hail from the tunnels below the arena here.
Is that?
He's a wrinkle-skinned fighter with a shining steel blade. It's Pinkie, the Mulmarian.
The Mulmarian?
This hefty competitor really.
The Mulmarian. Oh my god. Okay. So, little story here. I've never done a Dwarf Fortress series on my channel. Not yet. I will eventually, I promise. But I have played Dwarf Fortress, and one of my first forts was attacked by a group of Mulmarians, and that attack caused it to death spiral spectacularly. It was my first taste of defeat in Dwarf Fortress, and it was hilariously done. But yeah, I very distinctly remember the Mulmarians. And yeah, they're pretty savage, and they attacked me without weapons. They just came up, they just unburrowed and just went, beast mode. And now you give them some weapons?
Fine creatures with animalistic levels of intelligence, but this one here seems to have really taken to the blade. As such, he's been trained by our best swords dwarves, and we're thinking that Pinkie here, despite his lack of armor, stands to go far this year. But, like the rest, we'll have to wait and see now.
I'm going to make an exception for my large, unarmored rule of them doing badly, and I'm going to say Pinkie at least advances 1 round. Just because I know how savage Mulmarians are from direct experience.
Oh wait, good luck out there, you naked bastard. Up next, we have yet another local who nearly drowned a member of our very own expeditionary force. She's a flailing brute with nasty designs. Kruggsmash, the Reacher. Yeah, our explorers were out in the tunnels one day and came across a shriveled corpse by a lake's edge. They didn't think much of it and were about to leave when the thing suddenly struck, grabbed a dwarf, and attempted to bring him back into the murky water. Long story short, this creepy lady here has just the kind of attitude we need here in the arena, so we gave her some flails, armor, and an ample amount of training.
Okay, so 2 flails. I'm liking the double weapons do tend to do well. And while this is not bronze armor, this is clearly leather or hide armor of some sort, it is armor, which can at least soften or deflect some blows. Also looks like they have a mask for their head so they don't just immediately get crushed. And yeah, that probably got some good reach. I'm gonna say the Reacher. I think the Reacher's gonna do something. I think they'll make it the first round, depending on their opponent.
The hell could say how she'll do. Keep an eye on her fighters, because she's got some tricks up her sleeves. Finally, coming in next, we have a fighter with a sense of duty. A civilized fellow who's a stellar conversationalist, armed with a handy halberd at that. It's Radok, the Gorlach.
Gorlach, what are those things?
Home, the same explorers who recruited Quaggot also here, who was incredibly interested in.
So Pac-Man, a Gorlach. Okay, again, another weird creature of the deep. But you know, I'll admit I don't know my Dwarf Fortress lore that much. But yeah, it's a head with arms and legs and no body. Which means it's small, but small does not mean weak in the world of Dwarf Fortress. Do not count out small characters. I just need to know what this is made of. Is this steel? Is this iron? Because if someone cracks that open easily, I mean, they are a giant walking weak point. I don't really see them doing that well. And yeah, they have a halberd, which is good for a shorter character, but again, it might be a little unwieldy if they get into a close combat scrap. So, not really...
Humble arena. This burly Gorlach works as a tunnel guide for wandering dwarves and has more than his fair share of experience against the dark denizens out there. But the question is, how will he fare against the denizens of Splatterface? Well, stay the hell in your seats and we'll find out.
Also, his legs are very vulnerable. He could just get his legs cut out from under him and then just beat to death.
Now, won't we? A silent walker of the dark. Our next fighter hails from tunnels far, far away. For a change, armed with her deadly bow, Jangles, the plump helmet woman. A rare sight in Splatterface, we have a ranged competitor, who I can tell already is going to be a fan favorite.
So yeah, the ranged characters don't tend to do well. They had one in Season 1, and she didn't make it past the first round. But maybe this one's a bit different, especially with the hazardous arenas. I'm going to say that if they get paired up against an opponent in one of the hazardous arenas, then she's got a huge advantage.
With her energetic personality, she is sure to steal the hearts of the audience as adeptly as she steals the life from her opponents. Seriously though, that bow is not to be underestimated. Whichever arena she ends up in will make a terrific difference. 50 gold coins to the first person who can tell me how she hits anything when she doesn't even have eyes.
Oh, that must be her helmet. Like it's a decorated helmet. She's just a mushroom cap. I don't think the lack of eyes will cause penalties to her as far as being able to hit things. That being said, I'm worried about what happens when she closes to melee, but these chains, she might actually wield these chains as like sort of a melee defense. She might be a tougher egg to crack than I'm giving her credit for.
Luck out there, Jangles. Finally, with our next contestant, we emerge from the tunnels below and look to the skies above. With razor-tipped talons and gnashing jaws, it's Kata, the harpy.
Yes.
This is an odd one. Kata is a flying fighter.
Yep.
Which could pose a terrible threat to our opponents.
So, flyers traditionally have always done really well. With Shrieking Sounds in Season 1 and Song in Season 2, flyers are really good. They've never won, but they've done really well.
but I'll have you know her lack of weapons. A striking disadvantage, to be sure.
So they saw... We've seen how powerful flying fighters with weapons are in the past seasons. I think this is their attempt to balance out the token flyer by having them not have like an actual weapon. I mean, they have claws and teeth, obviously, those kind of weapons, but not a traditional sword or spear or anything like that. So that's probably going to bring them in line. That being said, the flying advantage is huge.
However, perhaps the Harpy has no need of a weapon. Some fighters use flashy tools to defeat opponents, but others make do with the gifts of their gods. And in Kata's case, this so happens to be a maw of crushing teeth. How she'll bite from within that helm, though, I couldn't really say. But I suppose we'll find out soon enough, eh? Next up, we have an ironclad caravan guard who is right at home in the burning eastern wastes, wielding her mace and sporting a mouth of venomous razors. It's Fury, the Gila monster woman. Now, you might be quick to write off this rather small fighter, but you'd be a silly bastard if you did.
I'm getting Karaka vibes from her. Karaka was from season 2. Karaka didn't make it out of the first round, but she really should have. A big shield, a weapon, a decent weapon, crushing weapon is always good. And they mentioned that she has venomous teeth. Which could, I mean, sometimes when a fighter either loses their weapon or loses an arm, they will resort to biting and using natural attacks. And if you got venom, that could be probably more deadly than her mace here. Plus, again, the big shield, plus some studded armor here to keep her safe. You know what? I'm throwing my money on Fury here.
Be careful not to judge a book by its cover, my friends, because oftentimes a fighter's best ally is an unassuming nature. Personally, I think a small fighter with a job defending caravans sounds pretty...
Sounds like she's got good skills, too.
I think Fury's gonna hold her own just fine. Hey, don't let me down out there, eh, Fury? Good luck.
I'm rooting for Fury, too.
And next, we have a couple of fighters from the newly, sadly, reconstructed goblin pit known as the Tower of Maggots. We have first a sassy goblin warrior who enjoys long walks on the beach and flaying the fallen corpses of her foes, Grin. Admittedly, the goblin has a fairly standard getup, clad in iron and wielding a simple short sword and shield, but boy, that is a lot of iron.
So, that's a lot of armor. And iron armor, too, and a big shield, iron helm, iron armor. I mean, that's better than the bronze that a lot of the fighters are. A short sword as her only weapon. So she's a lot more defense than offense. Ooh. I don't know how good her skills are.
Boots, greaves, helm, and mail. Anyone who faces Grin out there should hope they get in a lucky shot, and quick, too. Bear in mind that this goblin is a skilled
Okay,
warrior.
so they're skilled too. So, yeah. I mean, usually the heavily defensive ones, they do well. She'll probably make it past round 1, depending on the arena. And also who her opponent is.
An elite combatant, capable of crushing her enemies like a whole bunch of easily crushable objects. A truly fearsome force. In this, our third Splatterface. And coming in last, but by no means least, we have a shaggy heap of well-muscled monster, Wump the Troll. Our biggest competitor this year, Wump hails from the Tower of Maggots, just like her friend Grin. Though unlike her friend, Wump stands more than 4 times the size of a typical Splatterface dwarf, and towers over even Pinkie the Mulmarian. The question is, though, will her rather sparse armor and steely maul be enough to crush...
Probably not. Big character, sparse armor. Nope. I say they fall in round 1.
Through her opponents? I'm willing to bet it'll do the trick just fine. Now that's going to do it for this year's fighters. It's quite a crew, and I could not be more eager to see how they'll do out there. And before we go getting them all paired up, I'm thinking we should get them out into the arena floor just to see how they size up with one another, get a better idea of things. Yep, here we go. Yep, now we can see them. Overall, a lot more heft in the lineup than previous years, that's for sure. Look at Wump. Wow, that is a large troll. And then down there at the other end of the spectrum, we have our Gila monster, Fury. Oof, she has to be feeling a little daunted out there. Just remember, Lizard, the bigger they are.
Yeah, so these are all of the fighters and their respective sizes to one another. So you can see Wump is absolutely towering over all of them. You can also see how small Fury is compared to everyone else. That being said, I still have my money on Fury. I still have my money on the Mulmarian, even though, like, against my better judgment, he is the one large one that I'm going to say might do decently well. But again, I'm a little bit biased there. My true, if I had money that I'm putting on this, it would be on Fury, the small one here. But we'll see.
The harder they fall. Also going to take this time to note the dwarven pronunciation of Gila with a hard G. That's the way we on this side of the dunes pronounce it. Apparently some people pronounce it correctly with an H. It's not how we do it over here. And again, if you're inclined to complain, weep in the hall, please. Anyways, there we have it. So, gather your gold and start formulating your bets, but don't go too far because now we have to figure out our lineup.
Okay.
And so, here we go. First up, we have Kata versus 4.
Gonna call this one for Kata. 4-play probably not gonna be. I mean, it'll probably get real messy. But this one, limited mobility, Kata, flyer. I'm gonna give it to Kata.
Then Pinkie versus Jangles.
This one is going to be entirely dependent on the arena. If it is a stock standard arena, Pinkie will make mincemeat of them. If it is a hazardous arena, like the Archer arena or the Waterfall arena, Jangles is just going to pincushion Pinkie, and Pinkie doesn't stand a chance. So I'm going to hold my judgment on this, but it's all on the arena, not on the fighters.
Carnivore versus Fury.
Man, you gotta pit those two against each other, because Carnivore was the other one I was kind of saying has a lot going for her. I'm gonna stick to my guns and go with Fury, but this is gonna be a close one, and this might just be another upset of a fighter that could go all the way gets upset in round 1 because they are just put up against a really good opponent. But I'm gonna put my gold on Fury in this one.
Quaggot versus Grin.
Ooh. So Grin has that short sword. Could definitely mess Quaggot up. Quaggot has the flails, but... Well, see, that's the thing. Flails are blunt weapons. And against all that iron, I mean, that might not be enough. They might get knocked around. You know what? I'm going to say it's going to be narrowly Quaggot. Grin definitely has the potential to do well, but against Quaggot, yeah. The only way I see that Grin working is if they get the Archer arena, because Quaggot's definitely a lot more vulnerable to those arrows than Grin.
The Eye versus Blue Bottom.
I'm going to give it to Blue Bottom. I don't see much potential in the Eye.
And last up in round 1, we have Radok versus Wump.
I'm going to give it to Radok, only because, again, the large but badly armored fighter curse tends to rear itself. Now, granted, if Wump gets in a good hit and just cracks him like a walnut, then yeah, Wump is going to win. But if he doesn't, and they didn't say how skilled Wump was, whereas this guy was a skilled denizen of the caverns underneath. I think if we're looking at skills here, Radok's going to take that one.
My bearded bastards, we have only just begun this year's festivities, and we have so much more to get through. So,
let me know what you guys think of this. I know this is kind of a weird video, but I'll dive in for commentary and reaction when they release the episodes. In the meantime, go sub to Kruggsmash, go watch season 1 and 2, support the official release, and stay tuned for more Splatterface. Also, let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to kick butt and take names? Who do you think is the strongest contender of the lineup here? I don't know. I have a guess, but tell me what you think. Tell me who you think is going to go all the way, and if they can unseat the Battle Beetle. So until next time, this has been Pinstar signing out. See ya!